World Fantasy Award-winning third volume of the Lyonesse Trilogy brings attention to the fairy changeling Madouc. Where Princess Soldrin once meekly endured the proprieties of Castle Hadeon, Madouc defends herself with rotten fruit. Vexed, King Casimir arranges a contest to marry her off, but Madouc has other ideas and enlists the stable boy, Sir Pom-Pom, on an impromptu quest to find her father. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Himbar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Jack Vance's Madouc. Madouc is a 1989 novel by Jack Vance in Book 3 of the Lyonesse Trilogy, and I want to start right now because I know you might be leaving here in a second, that even though this is Book 3, this book makes the entire trilogy easily worth it. This is one of the best books I read in 2022. It is very different from the first two books, but it is set up phenomenally well in those first two books, and it allows this book to thrive, and no wonder it won the World Fantasy Award, just to put it bluntly. So, Ulfland under Eylis contends with Lyonesse and Casimir, and Haut and Audrey are kind of like in this like little war. Of course, you root for Eylis, and you don't root for Casimir at all. There's a great focus, though, on Madouc and her provenance. There's even a bit of the Holy Grail here, finally, as this is Arthuriana, but before Arthur. Even really before Uther. So, Madouc is a changeling. For those who've read the first two books, you would know that. But she's kind of an outsider, and not like a terrible person either, though, for being this changeling. She's kind of a character you feel for. In fact, I have a quote on my website, my author website, where the quote is from Jack Vance, but it's Madouc speaking, actually, which is it's a pretty good quote. Anyways, so there's some great setup from these first two novels. Makes this a well-working machine of a novel. It's easily my favorite of the bunch. It's interesting that Madouc is not really that important in book one, and Droon and Eylis, though in this book, are less important. They have the back seat. And, this book, because of the setup that is done in book 1 and 2, when you finally get Madouc and her part of the story, it's very rapid. Even though this book is still, about as long as the first two, it's very rapidly done. The pace is really well set. It's just from one event to the next, and Madouc has this adventure that's pretty extravagant in ways, but very not in other ways. The fairies are, of course, involved. We have Sir Pom-Pom, who's a stable boy who is, basically named a knight by Madouc, but isn't really a knight, and then Madouc isn't really a princess in a way yet, right? So we have a lot of stuff here, and a kind of a sad but whimsical at the same time coming of age. And honestly, I think there's a lot to be had here, and I think most fans of contemporary fantasy would absolutely love this book. Just to leave it at that, this is a good book, and this is a good showcase of Jack Vance at his best. More than 30 years after he wrote The Dying Earth, he was still putting out some great and fantastic novels, which is why Vance is probably one of the best writers that speculative fiction has ever seen. And these days, he's just underappreciated, which is sad. But I could go about on Vance for a long time. So anyways, from Liam's Lyceum, read this trilogy. Catch you next time.